I don't think bike thieves are brave. I think they're comfortable, and that should worry every rider. Hi and welcome back to Talks and Tales. This episode we're going to talk about why bike thieves aren't scared anymore, and for us riders, we're the ones paying the price. I don't know about you or anyone else that's listening to this podcast, but for me, I now give it a second thought when I decide to ride my motorbike to the shops, or I go into a local city, or even when I'm touring. It's always at the back of my mind of where am I putting my bike? Where am I storing it overnight? What security am I carrying with me to secure the bike? It's now more prevalent in our minds than it ever has been. And I don't know whether that is because of social media, because of podcasts and bits like that it's more, the information is much quicker at getting to us. But it does feel like motorbike thefts are absolutely through the roof. It feels like it's gone from being the stories of 3 a.m, a couple of lads turned up to my house and got through my garage door and stole my motorbikes. It's now gone from that to I was riding home from work and 2 lads pulled up alongside me with a knife, telling me to get off the bike, and they were stealing it. You know, it feels like they're becoming far more brazen to just stealing bikes, even in broad daylight. I mean, look at all the videos that we see, especially down in London. And this isn't just specifically aimed at London. This can be happening in Manchester, and Leeds, and Sheffield, Nottingham. It happens everywhere in the UK. And I'm sure it happens, overseas as well. But we do seem to have a problem where it is generally younger men roaming the streets on stolen stolen mopeds, stolen bikes, no number plates on, no helmets. So it's very, very obvious that they've stolen that bike. And they're normally riding 2 up, and the guy in the back jumps off, takes an angle grinder in broad daylight in the middle of London, middle of Manchester, absolute brazen as hell, angle grinder, snips your disc lock, snips your chain holding it to a lamppost, and they just snap the steering lock and push it down the road. And that's becoming really, really prevalent now in our society, and it's so disheartening. It's so disheartening. I think what's scary is just how quickly that bikes can be stolen. All it takes is 2 blokes or two lads to lift up a bike and chuck it in the back of a van. I've seen countless CCTV footage of just a van pulling up next to a bike in the middle of London, snipping the chain and literally lifting it up, chuck it in the back, and they're off. And no one would ever be any the wiser. And I suppose it's frustrating, isn't it? Because as a bike lover, you see members of the public walking past like it's just an everyday occurrence. And I think that's what's scary. It's like where does this stop? Why? What do we need to do to make this stop? And we've seen it in motorbike communities and forums online. I saw a story from someone within the Beyond the Bends community, and they were telling us about how the bike had been stolen. They'd nipped out, I think it might have been Liverpool, and they went into Liverpool city centre, went into a shop, came out, the bike was gone. And now, that's unfortunately quite a common occurrence. This individual reported it to the police. Police, I don't think, found it. got the insurance company involved and bits and pieces. And then they must have put a social media post out, and the thieves actually contacted the owner of the bike and said to him, "Do you want your bike back? If you want your bike back, you've got to pay us X amount." If that doesn't shock anyone, the brazenness, the ballsiness of them to do that. All it takes is, the wrong person to go, yeah, I'll give you X amount. Shall we meet at the car park then and hand you the cash? All it takes is for a few lads to turn up and just beat the thief to a pulp. Not that I'm condoning that, because I'd probably get told off for that, but for a lot of riders, myself included, it's not just a financial loss when we lose a bike, it's an emotional impact as well. And in most cases, I know when I've had a bike stolen, I always thought to myself, even if they found it again, I don't think I'd want it. It just, some dirty little chav has been on it, has just thrashed it to pieces. I wouldn't want it back. I'd rather you set it on fire. But I think it's so frustrating, isn't it? Like, where are the consequences? There's just no consequences. I think the main takeaway here is that it almost doesn't feel like bad luck when you've had your bike stolen. It just feels like it's normalised. Like, oh well, what a shame. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I suppose it begs the question, why are thieves not scared? Why are they not bothered? Why do they just think that it's okay to ride around on stolen motorbikes with balaclavas on and steal people's bikes in the middle of the street in broad daylight? And I think it's pretty much what I just said. There's no consequences. There's no consequences for people's actions. There's really low chance of being caught, and there's even lower chance of any consequences. Bikes are inherently easier to move around. They're easy to hide and they're easy to strip. So we are going to be susceptible to it. And I know a lot of people say, that the police are stretched and they're kind of more of a reactive type of force. But I've seen it when I've been even in my car. I'll drive down to my local village, and it was only, I think, around Christmas time, and I was driving down, and there was a police car coming up, marked police car, coming up the opposite direction. And literally, as that police car passed me, 2 stolen motorbikes, guys on balaclavas, pulled out in front of me from a side road, overtook the copper on the back wheel, and just drove off. A copper didn't move, no lights, no nothing, just did nothing. And I think that is where the issue is. There's just, and I've said it again, but there's no consequences. I honestly feel like the police should be given assistance and cover, basically, for knocking them off. If you're riding a motorbike, legally or illegally, we'll start with that, and you are not wearing a helmet, you're wearing a balaclava, and the police have got the blue lights on, and the flashing at you, and blue lights going, asking you to pull over. If you don't pull over, fucking knock them off. Just do it. You shouldn't even, if there's clearly something wrong, if you are no helmet, thrashing about with no reg plate, and the police are chasing you, knock them over. Doesn't take much, does it? But I think we seem to have this namby-pamby kind of society of, I don't want to hurt them, we can't hurt them. What happens if poor Bob gets his leg broken? Who gives a fuck? They've stolen my 5-6 grand motorbike. They shouldn't be on the road. What happens if that little dickhead decides to hit a kid crossing a road, or a kid coming out the back of a bus and hits them, and that poor kid then suffers for the rest of its life with injuries, mentally and physical, just because the idiot on a stolen motorbike decided to hit him. It's just, we need to do something in this country to stop this. It's getting beyond a joke. It it I get frustrated. I really do get frustrated because whenever I've had dealings in the past with the police regarding um, bikes being stolen, burglary attempts, my car being broken into, you know, it wasn't only a couple of years ago. Someone took a blowtorch to a neighbour's door just to get in to steal the I think it was a 4 Series Beamer on the drive, and it frustrates me because very very rarely you'll end up with someone coming out to investigate it. It just goes, here's a crime number, claiming your insurance, right, we're on to the next one. And I do feel bad. I feel bad because I don't mean to police bash, if you like. And I don't generally think it's an issue with the police officers themselves. I think a lot of it comes down to policies governing how the police act in certain scenarios, and I think that's where um, leaders, politicians need to give the police the freedoms to actually police the streets. And you know, I I can't remember the last time we have like a community bobby, like a community police officer in our local village. There isn't any anymore. It's so frustrating. But I feel like we need to do something. I think the problem is that the system seems to protect the thieves rather than the riders. And I think fundamentally that's wrong. Like that should not be the case. It's nuts. We shouldn't have to making a trip to like Tesco's or Asda or wherever and think to ourselves, oh, I need to carry a 12, 13 kilo chain, strap it to myself on my bike, just in case the 10 minutes that I'm in there, someone decides to lift my bike. Like, it just shouldn't happen at all. It really, really shouldn't. I remember years ago, and this was many, many years ago, I was riding, I was doing my CBT, and I found out that the CBT that I went to, the instructors were actually ex-police officers, really nice guys. And obviously living in Bradford's not exactly the most safest of places at the best of times, but when you're on a motorbike, you're a little bit more vulnerable. And I remember the police officer, ex-police officer, telling us, and I don't even know, he probably should have told us this, but he said, when you're riding, um, when you're riding and you stop at a set of lights, just make sure you have your wits about you, making sure that you're concentrating on who's on the pavement and if anyone's kind of coming up behind you. If you do feel like someone's coming up behind you, what you need to do, imagine that's a key with a very, very big key, but you get the idea. And it's in the barrel like this. So it's in the ignition's on. You're saying get your key, stick your fingers over it, and then if anyone comes near you, twist it and punch them with it really hard. I don't know if he was supposed to tell us that, but I suppose it's a good bit of advice if you actually really, really, really need that in that moment. So yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but maybe I'll get told off for posting that. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave the average rider? I think it leaves us with a very, very uncomfortable truth for all of us riders, and it leaves us in a very, very tricky predicament where we are now needing things like trackers. You know, it was only a little while ago, Itchy Boots, she had an Apple tag in a bike, and I can't remember exactly where she was, but her bike got stolen, and she ended up finding it and tracking it just up the road. You know, we shouldn't need that. I mean, I think she was in a completely, I think she was in a completely different country, but I'll have to find that out. So yeah, and we shouldn't need that, but unfortunately, we are in that position. I think we are almost, when we're parking our bikes up in garages, that we're having to like double up on security. Like, for me personally, I've got CCTV covering the garage externally, CCTV inside the garage. I've got a ground anchor with a bloody big chain, and then a disc lock. I mean, you think about that, that's just nuts, isn't it? Why do you need that much security? But I know me personally, I've had 3 or 4 attempts on my garage to try and get bikes. It was worse when I had my trials bikes in there. A little while ago, my wife and my kids were away, and I'd taken myself off to the lakes. I'd done some riding on the road bike for 2 days, and then I came back and I chucked my bike in the garage and I took the trials bike out for the afternoon. And when I came back with that, I was like, I've got 2 dirty bikes now, 2 dirty bikes. And I thought to myself, I need to clean these. So a quick phone call to the wife, and she's like, oh, I'm going to be a good couple of hours before I'm home. It's like, right, okay, perfect. So headphones on, and went and cleaned both bikes, put both of them on the drive, cleaned them all. And I didn't notice anyone watching or anyone that kind of walked past and giving me a bit of a side glance. It's not something I was thinking about. However, I probably should have been thinking about it, because it was only like a day or 2 later. I woke up in the morning and went to go take my little lad to nursery. And as I put him in the car, I could see the bottom of the garage door was peeled up, and I thought, oh no, fucking bike's gone. So before I went anywhere, I quickly checked on the CCTV. I could see that the bike was still in there. So I was like, right, it's fine for now. Let's go take the kid to nursery, and I'll come back. Took him to nursery, came back, and I was like, right, let's have a look and see what damage is done. Absolutely knackered the garage door, so that needed repairing and replacing. And then I put additional security on that. But you could see on the CCTV, it was three lads. They weren't even wearing balaclavas. I think they were wearing COVID masks, I think. They had gloves on. They were trying to peel up the garage door. Now my car was actually parked right up against the garage door. Probably one of the reasons why they struggled. And handprints all over the front of the car as well. You could even see at one point in the CCTV footage, I'll try and find it and I'll put it in here, but you could even see at one point someone was getting a phone call while they were trying to rob my garage. And then they decided to just call it quits and disappear. And that was a prime example. Spoke to the police and said, look, someone's been to my garage door, three lads wearing very, very distinctive clothes, in all fairness. They weren't interested. They're just like, oh, okay, thank you, here's a crime number, see you later, bye. I'm like, what the hell? It's just frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. There wasn't much longer after that. A number of cars along our street have been broken into. I think on total there was like 7 or 8 cars. I won't say 6, 7, because my son will be absolutely buzzing that I said 6, 7. But yeah, about 7 or 8 cars that have been broken into. All windows smashed, reached in to grab or have a look in the car. And by pure chance, I stupidly left my wallet in the car. Now they couldn't see it because it was in the door card, but they broke in, stole my wallet. And then the individual had walked off my drive and away from this house that was on the end of the street this way. Now there's a reason why I'm telling you that they walked away from this house at the end of the street. And obviously the next day found the car damaged, booked it in to be sorted. I had to find, my garage couldn't fit a car in at the time, so I had to find a family friend that had a garage and put it in his garage before the guys come out and replace the glass. And it was only a couple of days later and get a knock on the door, and this chap, and not a bloke that was from around here anyway, not that I'd seen, and he had this white envelope in his hand, and he goes, I'm trying to get in contact with your neighbour. And I was like, all right, okay. Now at the time the neighbour was like, she was an 80-year-old woman, thinking, not quite sure she would be dealing with this chap, but fair enough. I said, oh, is there anything I can help with? She's an elder lady. So I'm just trying to give these cards back. Cards. So I opened up the white envelope, picked my driving license out of the white envelope, and I picked it out and I looked. Well, I went, why are you trying to drop it off with the neighbours when you know this is got my address and my face on it? And he was like, and he was very, very sheepish. And I said, look, where'd you find it? And so I found it near the house at the end of the street. And I was like, I know he's lying. I know he's lying because I know that the CCTV showed no one, the burglar, the thief, whatever, walked in the complete opposite direction. So my cards would never have been in there. So I was like, okay. So again, rung the police and said, look, the guy who's potentially just burgled us, robbed stuff out of like loads of cars down the street, have just been knocking on my door. Worst case scenario is probably developed a bit of a conscience and whatnot. And again, the police went, okay, thanks for letting us know. Thank you, bye. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell? Well, look, we are where we are. And I tell you what is nice to see though. It's nice to see the biking community kind of coming together, and it's kind of forming these groups where specific groups are helping bikers find that kind of reunite people with their stolen bikes. So there was some big communities, especially around London, that were doing that, and it's great to see. It's great to see that social media is helping in that sense. So if someone does lose a bike, they go, look, this is the picture of my bike. If anyone finds it, please give me a shout. But the sad thing is, in most scenarios, the bikes are trashed, absolutely trashed. There are a few occasions where, the thieves have pushed them or tucked them down a side street and put a cover over them and just left them and think, we'll see if someone comes and finds it and if there's a tracker involved. And in some cases, people do get them back, normally with some barrel damage and some steering lock damage. So frustrating. So frustrating. Okay, so to wrap up this episode, where does this leave us as riders? It leaves us in a very, very difficult position, doesn't it? And it leaves us being quite cautious when we're out riding. It leaves us looking at latest tech and looking at what things we can put in place on our bikes to make them less appealing to thieves. Looking at locks, looking at disc locks, looking at chains. And it leaves us really questioning when we do our rides, where are we parking for the night? Where are we leaving our motorbike? Are we leaving it in a secure place? And I think it leaves us with that balance of, do we leave it somewhere really visible, so if someone does try to steal it, that it's easily seen, or do we leave it tucked away in a corner somewhere? And that's a balance that each rider will find when they're doing their motorbike tours and their local rides as well. It's probably less of an issue when we're going to biker cafes, like Squire's Cafe, because there's normally lots of people around, all in the same community as us, all looking after each other. And I think fundamentally that's where it lies, isn't it? We've got to be looking after each other, staying vigilant when we're in our group rides, checking if people are following us, being mindful about who is behind us. But unfortunately, for now, it leaves us second guessing some of our decisions, second guessing where we ride and where we park. And there's not much we can do about that right now. There really isn't. Apart from making our bikes less appealing to thieves by covering up and locking them up and just being mindful about where we park. But look, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Talks and Tales. I'm looking forward to see you on the next one. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. So we're on YouTube and we're on Spotify. And there's also a Facebook group, Beyond the Bends. It would be great to see you on there. I'd love to hear some of your stories as well. And we do have quite a few guests lined up, which I'm really looking forward to over the next couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to bringing you some information from them and finding a bit more information about them as well. I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so much, guys. Keep it shiny side up. Take it easy.